to the CEN show where the people's voice is valued and informative. The Community Education Network.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. Visit the website in your investigative and spare time. We have a forum that anyone can participate in. Let us know your thoughts, and people can engage in constructive dialogue. There's perspective writings on the website also. We have added a legends page of dynamic personalities of the 20th and the early 21st century. We have past shows in the podcast section. We also have recommendations and an events calendar. I'd like to present to everyone this evening our guest, Professor Amin Rahh. Professor Amin Rahh is a professor emeritus of Long Beach State, California University, and he also has a long resume of things that he have accomplished. He's a person of service and an excellent person to go to and get great information from. Professor Amin Rahh, how are you doing this evening?
Black.
Excellent, excellent. This evening's show is titled "The Challenge of Black Political Leaders," and Professor Amin Rahh is going to do a presentation about that topic with various other topics. He's also going to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this evening. So just sit back and listen, and we're going to enjoy his presentation. And then at the end, we'll ask him some questions and we'll make some comments. Take over there, Professor Amin Rahh.
First of all, I want to thank you, Rashaki Maskani, right?
Rasaki Maskani.
Rasaki Maskani, for putting this platform together for us to communicate to the world and to all listeners and all people that chime in for the purposes of hopefully educating ourselves, as you say, Community Education Network. And at the same time, that is one of the fundamental elements of development is education. And one, as we say in the African American Culture Center, show me a revolutionary and I'll show you somebody to study. Show me somebody that is committed to the movement of helping and serving their community, or specifically Black people that want to serve Black people. Then it's definitely one who studies. So this platform for education is key, and what will make it successful is consistency, is steadfastness. It will build. I'm positive that it will become one of the most viewed and one of the most important elements of contributors to our development as a people platform, because Maskani is a very serious brother that is committed to that. And so we just got to find ways to get it out to the public, get it out to the community, so that they can chime in and realize the value of this platform and the outstanding guests that he's had. And at the same time, give the people that listen in an opportunity to ask questions and on various topics, from male-female relationships, Black male-female relationships, to Black child development, to just how to deal with the various challenges that we have from economic, political, educational, and cultural standpoint. So I just want to say Asante Sana, which is many thanks to Brother Maskani for all his hard work and the individuals that help with the technological aspect of this podcast. To just hats off to them for their service and their contribution to the community.
Thank you, Brother Rahh.
You must be kind, brother. And then I want to thank those that are listening that have been listening since the birth of the program, and those that make a contribution, and those that realize the importance of just being steadfast and being supportive of an effort of a brother who's trying to do his best to contribute to our forward flow of psychological, cultural, physical liberation. So I want to, again, thank you, Brother Mascani, and thank the listeners that's listening in and viewing in. Second, I want to go to a recognition of a sister that just made a transition. She went to Cal State Long Beach. She was a BSU Black Student Union president during the years of Black consciousness movements at Cal State Long Beach, and her name was Amanika Radeau, but her slave name was Michelle Radeau, but we called her Amanika, and she was just a beautiful spirit, a person that loved her people. She leaves children and grandchildren, but her memory will always have a powerful presence in our hearts and minds for those that know her, and all the good that she brought into her world. We hope it lasts forever and may none be lost. And that her contributions at Cal State and her contribution as a principal for LA Unified will live on through those that know her, carried on her philosophies, her values, and her example of a commitment to the education of young people and to the education of her family, to the love that she shared with her family and to her people. So I just wanted to give a little presentation and recognition to her, and may all the good she brought in the world last forever. And as she's gone to be an ancestor, may she be enjoined with all our other great ancestors and sit at the table of liberation for Black people in the spiritual world, and move on from that aspect. So that's what I want to say about her. Second, then I want to get into Martin Luther King Jr. week, where, as you know, his birthday was January 15th, which was last Friday, but it was celebrated this past Monday. It was just a great honor to be studying Martin Luther King and his contribution. You know, when I was coming up, I didn't understand Martin Luther King because I came from the streets, and we were looking at what they were doing to them in the South, and we just couldn't understand how people could let dogs be sicked on them and let fire hoses be turned on them and don't fight back. And it was an integrationist movement. It was a religious movement. And, when you come from the streets, I wasn't that, personally, I wasn't that religious at that time. And at that time, I wasn't into integration as well as into nonviolence. I was with Father Malcolm, who by any means necessary, and following the various organizations that advocated self-defense and advocated the sense of that if someone come to hurt you, you hurt them first. So, that was our philosophy. But as you study Martin Luther King, you realize what a treasure he was, a trailblazer he was, and what a monumentous contribution he made with his nonviolent philosophy and with his civil disobedience and activities. Martin Luther King Jr., who was really born Michael Lewis, and him and his father went to Europe and went to Martin Luther's church. And that's when they came back and changed their names to Martin Luther Sr. and Martin Luther Jr., King Jr. His name was Lewis King. But then he accepted the call to history when he really, in a sense, him and Coretta Scott King, they at the time that he got involved in the Montgomery movement, they had a car, so it wasn't about them wanting to ride a bus because they didn't have transportation. They got involved in the Montgomery movement and the bus boycott because of course, Rosa Parks, but at the same time, the indignity that they were doing to Black people in Montgomery and in those areas in the South. And he accepted the calling and the challenge of the Montgomery Improvement League, and they chose him as the leader. And that, from that standpoint, he grew, and he developed a movement, a monumentous movement, one of the biggest Christian movements of our day, a religious movement. They formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. That even contributed more to his aspect of religion as a movement. It took that type of spiritual strength to do the things that they were doing. As far as, first of all, just calling a boycott against white folks was dangerous. In those days, you couldn't even look at them without somebody getting lynched. And so they stood up, and they said that they was going to have a boycott, even though the boycott went for a whole year before it was effective enough to the point in which the people decided to acquiesce and give in and desegregate the buses. And it was that type of a structure. But the beautiful thing about Martin Luther King is not, so people be talking about, you know, I had a dream. Every year they bring out that I had a dream speech, but that wasn't even the title of his speech in Washington, D.C. The notes, George Ratlin, a basketball coach, had a copy of the notes, and I think they had where they put his papers. And it was all about America, your check has bounced, or you wrote a bad check, something similar to that. And it was the people in the background urging him to do a sermon, to speak on a topic that he had preached before. It kept telling him, Martin Luther King, talk about the dream, talk about the dream. And that's when he started ad-libbing. He got rid of the notes, and that's where the dream came. But Martin Luther King was an activist. He wasn't a dreamer. And that's very important. And so when they talk about how you celebrate Martin Luther King, a lot of people like to say, well, you know, he always said, I want to be known for being a servant and being a servant. But really, the best thing to do is do some activism, do some boycotting, do some marching and demonstrating like he did on that day, on that Monday. And, you know, he had expanded the movement from just civil rights and integration to poor people campaign, and well, there's anti-war and anti-militarism budgets and things of that nature. So those type of issues should be discussed, and don't reduce him to a dreamer. Second, he was unique as far as character was concerned. When you come to character and discipline, he's a role model for many of our young people because you know, he was a straight A student, and that's very important. You don't get straight A's for just sitting in school doing nothing just to get a CC writer. You know, just sit and be quiet and you get a C. He actually did the work. That's what made him such a great speaker and a great writer. And the point is that he was skipped in the 9th grade, and then he was skipped in the 12th grade. He entered Morehouse at the age of 15. Graduated with his BA at 19. Most people don't graduate from college until they're 22, but he graduated at 19. He had gotten his master's at 25. Now, this is very important. His leadership style and the character and being a married man, taking care of his family, and that's a good role model for male-female relationship for young men, a good role model for educational attainment for young people. And so that's very important for us to bring out those character aspects of Martin Luther King. And he was exemplary when it comes down to bravery. because his house was bombed at least 5 times. He was put in prison, put in jail. He was arrested at least 10 times. He was stabbed in the chest by a black woman in Chicago, almost died there. They say she was crazy, but you know, the point is who drove her crazy and who set her up to kill him, to try to make it look like it was black people that did it instead of white folks. That never was investigated. The other thing is that he was just an individual that, you know, when you get your house bombed 5 times, you know, and FBI following you and taping you, calling you a communist, a socialist, and you expand your movement the way he did, and still move forward with quotes like the only reason to look down on somebody is to help them get up. Best thing to do to an enemy is to turn them into a friend. And we come too far to turn around. All those things that inspired other movements all around the world to use that tactic of nonviolence and social activities and to further move. But you know, he liberalized this country. It was their movement that moved to the 1965 Voting Rights Act. It was their movement that brought forth a consciousness of the immorality of the Vietnam War. It was their movement that brought forth the issue of poor people and homelessness back in those days, in the early 60s, that we have to give him credit for. So, in honoring Martin Luther King, you know, and at the same time, him and Malcolm was beginning to get along as far as talking and communicating. And when Malcolm left the nation, or the nation left Malcolm, and him and Martin came to terms that they both were dead men, and would be you know, just a matter of time. But he won the Nobel Peace Prize also, and you know, and you know, we got to also give deference to his wife, who stood by his side, who started the Martin Luther King Nonviolent Center in Atlanta. And so that's a key thing for Martin Luther King. So we have to honor him for his sacrifice and his martyrdom. Although, you know, the white folks like to say he was assassinated, we say he was a martyr, and it was a sacrifice because we had taught at the African American Culture Center under Dr. Maulana Karenga that, you know, when you say he's assassinated, that talks about what somebody done to him. When you say his sacrifice, that talks about what he done, and that puts his life more in a better perspective. So I honor Martin Luther King as a person that didn't have Jerry curl, that didn't have sagging pants coming up as a young man, that had character, and that represented Black manhood, Black leadership, Black fortitude. And he was an author. People forget he had written 5 books, and that's very important to inspire young people to write and to do a lot in their education from that standpoint. So I say asante to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to his family, to his sacrifice, to his contribution. We wouldn't have a lot of the progress we've had now if it wasn't for their movement, along with inspiring the Freedom Rides with John Lewis and the SNCC, Student for Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. All of that grew out of the Southern Christian Leadership Movement. Many of the leaders, C.C. Vivens, Jesse Jackson, Reverend Alvin Nathie, Reverend Laurie, James Foreman, all of them came out of that movement. And so we must, and not counting the women that came out also. So we owe a lot to Martin Luther King. And even though Stevie Wonder and other people demonstrated to have his birthday, a national holiday, some people wanted to, many Black nationalists wanted to just have April 4th also a holiday, which is not, and that was the day of his martyrdom. But at the same time, to force this society to honor him with a national holiday was big, and it was a people demand, and people demonstrated and got it done. Many of us that were conscious were celebrating it anyway. You know, we didn't need that them to say it's a holiday. Black people were celebrating it anyway, all across the country. And so we really want to thank Martin Luther King for his contribution, and hope more people will read about him, study about him. And another thing that we can do in his memory is practice his values, practice nonviolence, and teach our children not to be violent toward each other, and respect and be servants and speak kind to each other, and ethical and principled. That's another way we can celebrate his birthday. So studying about him, discussing him, listening to his speeches, and reading and is one way. Practice service is another way, and at the same time, internalizing the values that he used for a social movement into our personal lives. It helped me a lot as far as being able to not argue with Black people, not fight with Black people, not, you know, as we say in the culture center, it's best to lose the point rather than lose the person. If you lose the person, you can never make the point. But if you lose the point and let the person that you're having a debate or a discussion with win, you can always come back later and try to correct that issue or speak it again. So that's all I had to say about Martin Luther King. The other thing is Black political leadership. I taught Black politics in the Black community at Cal State Long Beach when I was a professor in the Black Studies program that's now Africana Studies. And you have to understand that Black leadership, there's a difference between Black, somebody talking about eating. There's a difference between Black political leadership and Black intergroup leadership. Black, and then there's just Black leaders. For years, white people chose our leaders, ministers back during the Holocaust of enslavement, and they trained them to lead us and represent us. They were our spokespersons, and they got preferential treatment. You know, various ways. And to this day, they choose many of our Black leaders for us. And sometimes it's very confusing because we want to know where, you know, why are these, most of the time it's entertainers, ministers, movies, you know, singers, someone that's trying to bridge or soothe us down with minimum solutions to major problems. In other words, those type of individuals. Most of the Black people that are that are into Euro-American politics generally represent somebody in the two-party system, even though they may be in a seat that's supposed to be nonpartisan. It's very difficult to represent Black people in the Euro-American dynamic. In other words, when they said that Barack Obama was the first Black president, or he was the first Democratic Black president, because he represented the Democratic Party, which is majority white. Black people make about maybe 20–30% of the Democratic Party. They're a large percentage because if they vote in the bloc, but the point is that you have to understand that in order to be a Black president, you generally have to represent black people, not the Democratic Party. And this is why he couldn't get a lot of things done for Black people, because the party wouldn't let him do it. He did some things, parties, this and that, and this and that. And that's throughout our history. Most Black people that are in electoral positions belong to the Democratic Party. And if they want to move up and get a higher electoral office, they have to acquiesce to Democratic policies. And sometimes they're wrong. Let me give an example. The majority of the Black caucus signed on to the 1994 Clinton law bill in Sacramento in the early 70s. It was Willie Brown, them who signed for the 3 strikes in California. They all went along with it because they were following the Democratic Party, and both of them were the Democratic Party. They led to mass incarceration, mass enslavement of Black people, and giving Black people 20, 30 years and enhancements and things of this nature. But people don't want to do the research to find out, these things. Second, many of our leaders are easily bought off because they look at serving us in electoral offices because white folks give them salaries and give them other benefits, especially if you get to be an assemblyman or a state senator or congressman. They make it a lifelong job. Look how many Black people that have been in political office for 20, 30, 40 years, and we keep electing them because that's what we do, even on a local level. We have a Black school board, and the schools are not doing what they should be. And we keep electing the same people because, they have name recognition, or they come, they be at your church, or they, and then the other person that run against them really haven't done the work like they should have done to get elected, and don't know how to run a campaign to get the masses to support them so that they could be independent. And it's a challenge. So anyway, then there's intergroup politics, and that's when we choose our own leaders, or leaders emerge within the community. Like in Ferguson, there was a lot of Black people that emerged after the killing of Michael Brown. That was great. The emergence of leaderships in Atlanta. At the George Floyd, grassroots people emerge, and they take a hardline position, and many of them get in leadership positions. But then you have national leaders that will come in, and they would, just do minimum things. What we want is an investigation. And then, okay, or we just want the police arrested. But you got to say, no, you got to make sure they're tried and convicted. But they don't go that far. They just say, once they get arrested, then the movement's over. Once they get an investigation, the movement's over. That's minimum rather than the maximum. And so most of the maximum demands come from the leaders that are emerged out the Black community. The minimum comes from politicians and national leaders that just want to soothe the problem and to show that they have a voice in the Black community so they can get a TV show or get on TV or something like that. Those are the dynamics. But our history of Black politicians that stood up for Black people, many of them have been arrested and charged on trumped up charges. Let me give you an example. Diggs out of Detroit was the only one that went to Emmett Till's trial. Next thing you know, he's indicted. Adam Clayton Powell, who had what they called the Powell Amendment, and he integrated DC, and took and sponsored the first Black Power conferences. He gets indicted. You can just go down the line of Black people that have been in the Euro-American politics. Marion Barry set up with an old girlfriend, and he was actively involved in civil rights. They were just, we can just go through a number of Black leaders now, they criminalize the race, then they criminalize your leaders that have your interests, and then next thing you know, that leader is not as effective as they should be. So it's a struggle from that standpoint of Euro Americans choosing our leaders, and second, when we do have a strong Black leader like Malcolm or Martin, who came from the community. You know, white folks didn't choose Martin. Martin was chosen by the community in Montgomery and grew to a national. Malcolm was self-taught. The beautiful thing about Malcolm is that he didn't finish college. You know, he was self-taught, and that's an example for street brothers who didn't finish school, that you can reach educational attainment on your own. Malcolm became an excellent debater, excellent organizer. He's the reason why the Nation of Islam grew, because people had so much love for him and self-discipline, eating 1 meal a day. Just a strong brother that built the 24 hours, 7 days a week, a rehab program, taking people on drugs and out of the penitentiary and converting them into Muslims and cleaning them up and getting them off drugs and getting them off of criminal activity and making them strong men and things of this nature. Malcolm was a beautiful spirit, which we call the fire prophet, when it comes down to his lectures and to his analysis that we still draw from today. So, you know, we look at those, and even like you said, you know, the COINTELPRO that killed our leaders to keep us from getting a Black messiah, a Black leadership. They can kill you a number of ways physically, and that's because of heresy. That's because of the way you think. And the other way, they character assassinate you that people won't listen to what you have to say, even though what you're saying is of value to the movement. So I'll end it right there and see if there's any questions. Oh yeah, this thing about Kamala Harris and the insurrection, which was white folks fighting white folks and white folks wanting to lynch white folks, white folks wanting to kill the speaker of the House and lynch the vice president. And it's shocking to white people because they've never been on that end where they were being hunted to be lynched, you know, on national TV and things of this nature. There's been, you know, it amazes me how many Black people were talking about, oh, our country, and as Malcolm said, you know, how can you say that? You're in America, but that don't mean it's your country. Am I saying give up your citizenship? No, I'm not saying give up citizenship. Get all the rewards and benefits that's afforded to you as an American citizen, but at the same time, know that you're not really an American citizen, you know, because if you were, you wouldn't be going through the voter suppression and the mass incarcerations and the Holocaust of enslavement for 100 years and the Jim Crow and the other form of manumissions and things that they've done to us as a Black people, as far as what Malcolm used to call second-class citizenship. And, you know, so those are the things that we got. You know, the erasing of the Black man, you saw in this inauguration, there was no real visible Black man that was a part of the platform. Even though Claiborne was there, he didn't have no major role. And it was almost all women to a certain degree. They erased. And the white man chose her, but she married to a white man. You know, I ain't against Black men who, or Black women who want to marry white. That's their personal business. But you know, I think that it's very challenging to fall in love with someone that reflects the Holocaust of enslavement ancestorship. In other words, you know, how do you, if your enemy can't be your teacher, how can he be your lover? And so you know, I have questions about that. And you know, she was a prosecutor in Oakland. She never prosecuted police. You know, you got to just look at that. I just think that you know, the fact that she's married to a person of Jewish heritage is suspect to me personally. But we have to challenge her. She comes from Howard. She swore on Thurgood Marshall Bible today to be sworn in. He went to Howard. You know, we hope that we can get her to do some Black things, you know, and hopefully that she will, we can, and we have a voice. And so we challenge and cherish the fact that they're saying she's a Black woman, then they always say she's Indian and South Indian, but she was raised Black. In fact, her mother met her boyfriend, her father, in a civil rights demonstration. So that she was raised Black. She went to all a Black HBC. And so all bringing up that other stuff, and the white folks, when they want to say you all Black, they say if you have an inkling of Black blood in you, or 1/3 of 30 degrees, you Black, you know. So I don't understand that, but we have to keep an eye on this sister because she's sleeping, as far as I'm concerned, with the enemy. But at the same time, you know, I'm hoping that it's just to get over in life, and you know, for whatever reason she's doing it, I hope it turns into a benefit to us. So I'll entertain any questions anybody have at this point, brother.
I have a question for you, Professor Amon-Ra. Now, I was trying to find some Black leaders that I think that would serve, you know, Black people's interests in a way that it would improve the condition of Black people. And I don't, you know, so far, the one guy that I saw that seemed to be pretty dynamic, he got killed by Dylan Roof in South Carolina. And then I see this Reverend Warnock. So can you kind of identify anyone that's up and coming that may do something that serve the interests of Black people?
Well, let me tell you, getting involved in electoral politics is important because we're here and it affects us. So I think that Stacey Abrams has done a good job as far as organizing and becoming a role model for what Black people can do in their communities. If they're gonna run for local politics, learn how to register voters so they can vote for you, and learn how to register voters so you can vote people out. I think that was a good example. So Stacey Abrams would be a good example because she was successful in Georgia. We had Reverend, the minister out of Martin Luther King Church, or Warnock. You know, it remains to be seen. He came up he spoke in George at Reverend Wright's church. Who they say he even studied under Reverend I forget his name, but he comes from a Black tradition. Ebenezer church, and he was very active in social movement, even though there's homeless people right out there across the street from the church, in Georgia. But the point is that they did have a successful movement. He come out of a church of John Lewis and Martin Luther King. So there's some activism there. So we have to look at, you know, ministers are leaders. Some of you know, even though they may be leading a European religion to a certain degree, Martin Luther King took the white religion and turned it into a Black weapon, and we got to wait to see if Warnock will use that experience and that tradition that he comes from in that church. So he's another person that I keep an eye out on. There were a number of people out of Ferguson, I can't remember their names, young people that emerged as leaders that I think represented the community as a whole in Ferguson's uprising against the John Brown killing. And there's a variety of young people on college campuses that are presidents of BSUs. They have done a good job as far as organizing and keeping the struggle going. We're in a pandemic now, so it's hard to see them in their activism, but I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't for that, that there have been a lot of activism on college campuses in reaction to the oppression that was brought forth by Trump when he was president. So, you look at leadership. First, leadership begins with yourself. Can you lead yourself? And toward a consciousness and an awareness. And then can you be an example to your family? Can you be an example to the community? And do people see you as a leader because of the way you carry yourself from a character standpoint and from a value system standpoint? Do you have a vision for where you think Black people should be going? And are you building organizations? Like, for instance, your leadership in developing this program, Muscani. I mean, that's a sign of good leadership. Most people would say, well, I got to be like Malcolm or Martin. Well, I don't think that's the yardstick you should be using. It'd be good if you could propel to national and international recognition and leadership, Malcolm and Martin, as far as international leaders and things of this nature, but that's a hard thing to do, and time and history has to invite you to that. But just local leadership and educating and being active in your community, active in your family, active as a human being, as far as loving and caring for your people, is a good sign of leadership.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about one more leader that's in Congress, Ilhan Omar. Yeah.
The Muslim sister.
Yes.
Out of Minnesota.
Yeah. How do you assess her? She seemed to be well spoken and standing up pretty tough for
well,
issues.
She's building on the activism of the Black people in the community. They chose her and they voted her in, and so she's carrying their agenda. To be a Muslim and to be elected is a challenge within itself. So evidently she had a message, and the people accepted her message, and she had a track record of service or activism. And it's a good thing that she's there. She's part of the progressive movement in Euro-American politics and trying to get the Democratic Party to have universal health care, to have to deal with the homelessness, to deal with the mass incarceration, to deal with the various employment and educational attainment programs. So it's good. I think she's good.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll go to Brother Doctor. Brother Doctor, you have any questions, Professor Amin-Ra?
No, that was very informative, man. I agree with him. I know a little bit about Kamala Harris's background from my little connections, and he's right on it, man. She also went to school in Canada. I think she went to school there in elementary, junior high, something like that. She went there for a while. Well, I think longer than she did here in the United States. But yeah, man, she did what she had to do, man, to get to that spot. Old Willie Brown, she hooked up with him and he took care of her. She got caught in investigations under the little dirty stuff they were doing there and got out of it. But yeah, very informative.
Okay. Sister Cherie, do you have any questions for Professor Amin-Ra?
No, not at this time, but I did want to comment about the point, losing the point versus the person. I really had liked it. That's the first time I've ever heard it, so I wanted to say that I recognize that, and I agree with everything he said as well.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Brother California, you have any questions for Professor Amin Ra?
They're muted.
No, not at the moment. No.
Brother Mashinda,
Just thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Um, Very informative, and we've heard a lot of those stories and historical facts in the past, some of the things, but Dr. Rah's obvious, he has a love for the history, and I just, appreciate his delivery and look for more, but no, just listening tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it.
okay. Right.
Let me just say this.
Mhm.
We as a people must realize that struggle and working to service others is not something that we have been programmed. We, from a cultural dynamic, you're taught to be an individual here. Sharing and loving and caring and honesty is a sign sometimes of weakness and stupidity when it should be a value. That's why they demonize and confuse you about that role of being a peacemaker or learning how to resolve conflict without violence and learning how to have the highest respect for each other. It's one thing to not like white people. It's another thing to love your people. Those are two different dynamics. Some people think just not liking white people is black, but loving black people is more black than not liking white people. Respecting all human beings, you have to do that, all humans. You respect them, but at the same time, you have a special love for your people because of the dynamics that we're in and the situation we're in. We've had black leaders throughout the continent of Africa, throughout history. We've contributed from a cultural dynamic and have influenced the world culturally, and from the standpoint of growing up in the most intellectual environment on the planet, and that's the continent of Africa, where medicines, foods grow wild, and you learn to relate to the environment, the animals. You get a chance to see life in its natural form, and you learn from that. It's like people growing up in the country and seeing cows born and seeing pigs born and seeing animals born and growing your own food and having a garden. And when you want to eat, you go you wring a chicken neck and our great-grandparents, or you go out and you pick the greens that you grew or the potatoes that you grew coming up in those rural areas. And we learn values, and the church has always played a major role when it was a social.
Okay, Professor Amin Ra froze up on us.
Uh,
Okay, Professor Amin Ra, you was out for a minute there. You kind of froze up on us.
I did.
Yeah, well, I guess it's probably on my end.
Yeah. But anyway, the point is that we have to realize the role of church in our history as people used it. As I said, Martin Luther King used it as a tool and a weapon for our progress. To get that many black people to march into harm's way and to go to prison, to go to jail and be subject to all the violence and things that they did. They have to be inspired with their faith. And we recognize that. I mean, that's what it took. And we have to respect that. There are other small churches that provide unique services and ministers do unique leadership. We have to respect that and respect people that are religious. But at the same time, the last thing you want to do is, religion can be a liberating thing and an activism thing, an organizing, or it can be an imprisonment. Whereas you are taught that just come in here, read the Bible, study, sing songs, hoop and holler, I love the minister, and you'll get yours when you go to heaven after you die, but don't nobody really want to die. So you got to recognize that. So you spend, you're 80 years old and the only thing you've done was go to church, and you consider your contributions to the movement is paying your tithes on time for the minister to do the things that they have to do with the church or whatever. So, but the point is that we've got to recognize all the instruments. Even the black colleges was a tool and a weapon, but they were also deemed safe schools. Howard University, where Thurgood Marshall, Francis Cresswell, Chancellor Williams, many black leaders went to Howard University. And I'm glad that they were in the parade and did that thing because they have a history. I spoke at Howard about 3 or 4 times, and a brother named Hebrew was there, and a few other people that I knew brought me back there to speak to their BSUs and things of this nature. But I was named after a white general, Oliver Howard or something. And I mean, how could you be a black school and still, we talking about changing names? They said, well, because he was president of the Negro, of the Free Man Bureau, and that he, but he went to West Point, he was a general. He's a general in the 1800s, I mean, but to me, I think Howard need to change his name, but see, those well, I don't want to even get into all that. That's a community movement, that's a student movement, and then alumni, no, don't change it. I like my name. I like Howard, and you change it. You got to change the map. You got to change the business cards. You got to change all of that, and people don't want to do it. But the point is that that's growth and that's development. As I grew, I changed my name from Arthur Montgomery Jr. to Amin Rahh. I mean, that's because what I was named after my father. And, it was a decision I made because as I grew, I changed. As I studied more about our history and our culture, I changed, I grew, I matured. And so learning to love and appreciate our history and our struggle, seeing the black woman as someone that you marry and you take care of, and she marry you, and then y'all work together to take care of each other, and you raise your children in a collective manner. That's important, but you can get caught up in the shaft and the superfly and the dynamics of sexual consumption as a male versus meaningful intimacy and values. Where the hip hop generation calling women names and calling men names, and next thing you know, you practicing that. You got tattoos all over you. You're letting your kids wear earrings, putting the earring in your baby's ear, and he's a boy, braiding his hair and letting his hair grow, talking about he got good hair, and I mean, it's a situation where you have to teach discipline and teach them to love you more than they love the streets. You want your kids to change the world, not the world to change them, and that's a struggle that we're in. But anyway, I'll get into that during Black History Month. I hope I'll be back for that later. Any other questions?
Oh,
see, David Love is here.
Yeah, we want to ask Brother David Love. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, brother. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure to hear Professor Amin Rahh. He's the one.
Yes, sir. I agree. Now, Our topic this evening was the challenge of Black political leadership. Do you have a comment or a question for Professor Rahh?
Oh, well, yeah, I have a question. Since I know that Sister Kamala Harris is now the vice president, and then we had a vacant Senate seat here in California, and there was a lot of pressure on the governor to appoint another Black sister to take the Senate seat. The most prominent people were Karen Bass, who was a former Speaker of the California State Assembly, Barbara Lee, who's a longtime member of the House of Representatives, and also even London Breed, who's a sister who's a mayor of San Francisco. And it seemed to me like, even though there's going to be pressure from a lot of different interest groups, it would seem to me like a safe position and a explainable position for the governor to take would have been to appoint one of those three sisters. I personally favor Karen Bass, but those three sisters. But he chose Alex Padilla, Latino, who is the Secretary of State. So my question is, based on that, do you think it would be a good strategy to select somebody else to back as governor, at least in the primaries, to make him pay for ignoring the Black constituency and making us lose a Black person from the Senate, when it would have been very easy for him to have put a very, very qualified superior candidate in office?
All right, I appreciate your question, if I understand correctly, David. And thanks for listening in. I hope you listen in the future and even maybe make a presentation too. But there are 3 or 4 issues that's at hand. One, you're correct. Kamala Harris left a statewide position. It's hard to win as a Black person a state senators, because the whole state has to vote for you, from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego. You have to run for the whole state as a representative. You only have 2 senators, Barbara Boxer, and there was another white lady who retired, and Kamala Harris, who was at that time was the state attorney general, and she had just got elected to that. So she had the apparatus coming from San Francisco to win the United States Senate seat for California. So it was 2 women, Feinstein and Kamala Harris. When Kamala Harris got selected as vice president for Biden, that left that seat open. And most people wanted to fill it with most Black people wanted Governor Newsom to appoint a Black woman, because Kamala Harris was the only Black woman that was a United States Senator. We've had another Black woman out of Illinois, Carol Braun, who was a Black senator, but she only was a 1-term because she got in trouble overseas and doing a bunch of stuff. But anyway, Kamala Harris, Latinos represent 40% of the population of California, and they've never had a senator. Well, the opportunity, they didn't have it because the 2 white women. Look at Feinstein. She's still going strong, and she's been there. I don't know how many terms, maybe 6 or 7 terms. The other white lady that retired, she just, they've been there, for years and years and years. So it wasn't like Black people were blocking a Latino from being elected, but getting a Latino elected. When you talk about Santa Barbara, Merced, and you start talking about San Diego, Orange County, Ventura County. It's hard to get that type of support for Latino or Black to be elected statewide. The only reason why Kamala Harris was able to do it is because she was a prosecutor and she was the state attorney general, and the seat was vacant. The white woman ran again, she couldn't have never won. But the point is, so now you're saying that Karen Bass or Barbara Lee or the president should have been selected. Many Black people upset. There's already a movement to recall Newsom, and many Black people that are upset about him not choosing a Black person is ready to sign the petition. He also appointed Shirley Weber, who was the Black Caucus of Sacramento, to fulfill Padilla's seat as Secretary of State for California, which is a powerful position in this race. And it's a statewide office. Shirley Weber just proposed, she just proposed a study for reparations for the state of California. And she just got that bill passed. And she got the bill passed mandating ethnic study classes in Cal State and UC campuses, that you have to have that. And she took the Latino place. I think that people are going to have to, realize that I don't think that Newsom made that decision by himself. I think that Kamala Harris, along with Biden and the Democratic Party as a whole, made that decision because they're thinking about the future of the possibility of strong Latino voter registration and voting for a national office for himself, or being a person that can move Latino votes for Democratic candidates in the future from that standpoint, and trying to motivate the Latino voters in California to register and become more active in the Democratic Party. You got to realize how many businesses Latinos have in the state of California from the standpoint of economic contributions to campaigns and to their outreach to Latino families and communities. African Americans may have something like maybe 10,000 businesses in the whole state of California, whereas Mexicans have close to 1 million businesses. And so you got to look at a lot of factors. I'm not justifying it. I like Carolyn Bass. I like Barbara Lee. She's the one Black Hawk Down took a position. She was the only one that voted against the invasion of Iraq and the killing of Saddam Hussein and all of that. She's a strong sister from up north. It's just a struggle within people. Are going to have to make that decision themselves. To me, it's all electoral politics. It's called political gang banging. The Republicans are red coats. The Democrats are blue coats. And politics is war without violence, and war is politics with violence. There's no ethics, no morals. To prove there's no ethics, no morals, they elected a man with no ethics and no morals called Donald Trump. So, that's the yardstick. I don't know what we benefit from the electoral politics of today, other than helping the Democratic Party. The movement in Georgia was great, and it showed what we could do, but the most effective politics is local politics. You're like a flea in milk up there in the Senate with Booker and this guy Scott and a few Latinos. There's over 100 and something senators, and you may have 2 or 3 minorities. The rest are old white men. You saw them could hardly get up and down the steps at the inauguration. They've been there so long. And then Biden himself, he's what, 78 something? We had Barack Obama. I mean, other than making us feel good as Black people and being able to say we got a Black president, but at the same time, we've had Black presidents in Africa and in various other areas throughout our history. So I don't know. It's you have to weigh. Okay, what do we get out of it, and are we strong enough to make that demand? Most Black people gonna do what the ministers say and what the Democratic Party say, and they're not going to unless you got a bunch of money to punish Newsom or to reward Newsom to do what you want them to do, and that's any politician. And you got a block of votes. That's why we always try to start the Black independent party. Are we saying don't be in the Democrats or Republicans? No, but have a third party. We used to have a third party. Fannie Lou Hammond started one called the Mississippi Freedom Party. There was the Tan Party. There was the Lyons County Party. We've always had independent, but then and some Black people was in Republican, Democrat. So until if you can deliver 500, 600 to 1,000 votes at one time, like unions and stuff like that, that's when you get people's attention, and then you can say we want a Black person to take that position. But as an individual, getting mad and talking about you should do this and you should do that, Newsom would do what we make him do. If you couldn't make it, you couldn't just go up and say, why don't you hire somebody to take Kamala's place as Black? Well, that don't mean nothing to them. They want to know, can you give them millions of dollars or can you give them thousands of votes? That's the way the game is played. But getting mad, most people getting mad probably didn't vote anyway. I mean, you have to see how many really are into electoral politics, which has been our enemy of the Democrats and the Republicans. George Wallace was a Democrat. I mean, well, I don't even want to get into all of that. But anyway, I think those that want to organize and try to wake this governor up for not doing appointing a Black person, I say fine. But there's really no leadership and with big money to punish him.
Mr. Ross frozen.
Trying to change Florida Latinos and Cubans and getting Latinos in Georgia and Pennsylvania and then Michigan to be along with the Black people for the future of those electoral swing states. Because they're looking at those type moves as far as I was concerned. That's why they did that. It wasn't that they were shunning Black people. They just trying to get more Latinos into the voting on a national level.
It seemed like a nice strategy, I guess you could say. Okay. Excellent, Professor Rahh. Brother David, any other questions?
Oh, no, that was excellent. I always like to hear the analysis of Professor Rahh. It's an excellent analysis. Excellent. Thank you very much, Professor Rahh.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate that. Okay, do anyone else have a question or a comment for Professor Rahh? Okay, well, we're going to end and do this again. So next week, we got a Sister Make It Happen. And the topic for next week is goals for 2021. So that should be interesting. And I appreciate everybody coming out. And
you froze. So say who's going to be in next week?
We have Sister Make It Happen.
Okay.
And the topic's going to be goals for 2021.
Okay.
So it should be interesting. So Thanks for coming out, everybody. And each one teach one. And have a good evening.
All right then, brother. You take care.
Thanks a lot, brother. Take care, everybody.
All right then.